And hello, and welcome to the Seeking Heaven channel. I'm your host, Tamara Caulder Richardson. I hope you're having a great day, and thanks for joining me. I want to go over a couple announcements. I'm going to bring and the guest right on. Terrific guest today. So, if you haven't subscribed to my Ascension School, please do. The Academy of Divine Wisdom. On there, you get a free 30-minute Christ-like meditation, which takes you in that near-death experience, bright light. And there's some really cool courses on there as well. And while you're on there, check out my Galactic services if you want to have a light code activation, past life, Earth mission, angelic transmission, Galactic starseed channeling. I channel Galactic Federation and Ascended Masters and so forth, and also spiritual coaching. If you're grieving and you want to talk to your family, I'm a highly trained international evidential medium. Check that out. And also make sure you do subscribe to the Seeking Heaven channel. So I want to bring on our guest today, and she's incredible. I've been wanting to have her, and she's been so gracious to come on. And that's Suzanne Ross. Let me tell you a couple of things about her, and then we'll bring her on. So Suzanne, she has dedicated her life to really with this whole as I say ascension program. I went to one of her events last year, the Sedona Ascension Retreat. I was very impressed how professional and how it just felt like a beautiful family community. But she does a lot of things. Okay. She has books, she has multiple event services. I mean, she does a lot. And I encourage you, we'll have the website and everything below to check that out. But she has a TV network, she does a lot of radio. She's been on, I know, like Coast to Coast Radio. She's the author of the series Up, which is the trilogy Wake Up, Rise Up, and Lighten Up. Such great positive names. And she is also the executive producer of Sci-Spy TV. What a cool name. And of course, I had mentioned earlier the Sedona Ascension Retreat. She's going to tell you us all about this, but she also has a tour where she does celebrity tours and spiritual journeys in the vortex sites of Sedona, and that's amazing. That isn't a magical experience if you can ever partake in that. And she also does a lot of intuitive readings and healing. She's very powerful person. So and a heck of a nice person. So I'm going to bring her on right now, Suzanne. Thanks for being on the Seeking Heaven channel.
Thank you for having me, Tamara. I'm so delighted to be here. It's an honor, and I greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, look, inquiring minds want to know. I know that you just didn't start out. I'm going to put your name up here so people can see you, and we'll have all your information below. And I highly encourage you to connect and see what Suzanne's up to, because I really do see you as a beautiful ascension leader. You try to encompass all topics. You really do. You have like at the one coming up, your near death experience people. You have all, galactic, UFO, galactic origins. I mean, you really do try to embrace the many topics of spirituality and ascension, which I try to do on my Seeking Heaven channel. So I know my people are going to love you. But your journey did start somewhere, and you just all of a sudden didn't just do this. And I just want to find out a little bit about you today, and when you feel like that you had a calling to step forward and I mean, it's a lot of work putting on these events, and I'm sure anyone who knows is a business owner. In the beginning, you don't initially make money, right? It's an act of passion in the beginning because you have to let this thing build. So when did this all take place with far as your spiritual journeys? And well, I don't mean your journeys, you probably have a lot of those too, but as far as your event company and then your actually Sedona Journey event company, and you really owning this whole part of you, when did all this happen?
Well, thank you for asking that. Actually, my spiritual awakening happened all the way back in the winter of 1995. And yes, I was working for the corporate world. I was very much in the American dream category of seeking corporate success. My husband was a corporate executive. We both traveled. We had a Porsche in the driveway and a pool out back. And on the outside, it looked like we were really living the American dream. But for me, I felt so misaligned. And I also felt displaced with where I was on the East Coast. I wasn't really aligned with the materialism of the corporate path, and also just what was taking place at the corporate environment, where there was deception, where everyone was throwing each other under the bus to get ahead, and just didn't feel like the positive environment
Yeah.
that
This
I
is interesting. Where were you on the East Coast, if you don't mind me asking? I know you don't live in the East Coast now, but what part were you
yeah.
in New York?
I actually lived in New Jersey,
Okay.
originally in Hackensack, and I worked at
Oh,
a corporate headquarters office that was located in Paramus, New Jersey.
okay. So were you in marketing then
I
or
was
sales?
in retail, and primarily
Oh,
what I did was to train the regional managers across the many stores, the over 300 stores that this company had across the United States. And then also, I worked locally throughout the tri state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, to train
okay.
store managers there. So, yes, that was my job.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I was in the corporate and I got disillusioned too. I felt there was something more. I think this is might be a few people's story.
Yes, yes. And so everything really came to a head one morning when I walked out into the kitchen, and I just said, if there's not more meaning and purpose to life than this, I'm out of here. I really had this overwhelming sense this is not what I signed up for, to wake up, to fight brutal traffic, to go to work and fight brutal politics, to get on the freeway and fight traffic again, to go home and have dinner and get up and do it over and over and over and over again. I felt like a gopher on a wheel going nowhere.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I got a call from my folks out in the desert of Southern California, and they said, "Come out to the desert." It was the middle of December in New Jersey, blizzarding, freezing cold. I'm originally from Southern California, and I just knew that's what I needed, was a break from it all. So I said yes. And I arrived at the airport. My father picked me up. And as we drove into this desert valley, and I saw the bright blue skies and the palm trees swaying in the wind, I just felt like I had come home. I had this sense that I am home. While
Yes.
we were there, we were just all having so much fun in the sun. And I was experiencing this laughter and joy that I just hadn't experienced in years. But as my vacation was coming to a close, I started to feel this impending sense of doom. And on one morning, I woke up and I felt called to run to the mountains behind their desert home. And so I just took off running toward the mountain, and the sun was coming up behind the mountains. And this is actually the cover of my book, Wake Up, because I share this story in the opening
Oh,
of
do you
that
have it
book.
near you? Do you have it near
I
you? I know
don't
it's on
have
the,
that near me at the
thumbnail.
moment, but I
Oh,
can grab it at some point.
good. Yeah, go ahead.
So what happened is I felt called to run to the top of this mountain. And so I did. I took off running. I ran to the top of the mountain. When I got to the top, I just threw my arms up to the sky and I said, "I am miserable in the extreme and I see no way out." And in that moment, I felt this incredible sense of calm wash over me. I felt as if the air around me was embracing me. And then there was this brilliant light illuminated all around me. And a voice came out of the light and it said, "Can't you see you've come home? You'll stay here and heal yourself and many others." And I'll never forget that.
Wow.
That moment completely changed my life.
Wow, that's what people wait for, that moment. Well, I think that you think, is it our guides? Is it our higher self? Is it both? It doesn't really matter. The fact is that's what you needed. Yeah. So you're doing it now. So what happened? So you sold the home and then you found a place, or what was the transition like?
So right after that happened, I looked out over the desert landscape and I was filled with so much excitement and enthusiasm over my new life in the desert as a healer. I ran down the mountain, and I felt like I was being guided by a force that was saying, do this, do that. And at times I almost felt like I was hovering above myself and watching myself go through these motions. That very morning, I drove to the nearest five-star resort. I applied for a job in health and wellness. I was hired on the spot. They said, "Can you start
Oh,
in 2 weeks?" I said, "Yes." And as I walked through the parking lot, I thought, this is surreal. What have I done? And in a
yeah.
matter of 2
That's
weeks, I
gutsy. Think
started,
about it. That's
right?
gutsy.
I
So
left my
you said, "I
husband.
need a
I left
job.
my
This
job,
looks nice. Why not go here?"
right? Yes, it felt so right. Nothing ever had felt so right before. And my father was just so happy for me. All he wanted was for me to be happy. My mother, bless her heart, she loves me dearly, but she said, "Have you lost your mind?" I
Really?
said, "You know what? I think I finally found it."
Oh, good for you. Oh, she's just being a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and so then I never looked back. I got into the field of health and wellness. Within months, I opened my own wellness center, which just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And still to this day, that was in 95. Still, I am on that path of mental, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being.
Yeah, and I love how that you start, with anything we have to start with us, right? The journey starts with us, and so you accepted the mission, and you started with you, and then it's blossomed. So you still have this center. Tell us all the things that you do there. And there's a lot of people not just living in the Sedona area, but people visit all over the world that probably come in also that are looking for healers. So you have that going on.
Yes, right? Well, this all happened in the desert of Southern California,
Oh,
and I
got it.
stayed
Mhm.
there for about 12 years, and
Right.
then I had a dark night of the soul in
Mhm.
2007, 2008, when everything came crashing down. The economy came crashing down, and I crashed down with it. And fortunately, I say the dark night is such a great gift because many people who experience a dark night of the soul, it's like
Mhm.
they come out of it and they see a big, bright light. It's like the light at the end of the dark tunnel.
Yeah.
And upon emerging victorious, it's like the light is bigger and brighter than it ever was before. The incident in 1995 set me on a spiritual path. But after the dark night of the soul, I went much deeper. I got into
Oh,
Buddhist meditation,
cool.
really was on a Buddhist path for a few years. And I learned mantra, tantra, mudra. During these deep trance meditations, I started doing automatic writing. I started channeling. I started writing my book.
Cool.
And this all happened when I was living in Northern California. At this point, I was working for a large wellness complex, and there they allowed me to teach mind, body, spirit workshops, and I became an integrative wellness specialist. And that was very fulfilling. And then I got this vision of this beautiful red rock city. Unbelievably, been on a spiritual path for almost 30 years, and I'd never even heard of Sedona, even though I lived in neighboring California.
Yeah.
But Sedona didn't appear for me until it was the right
Mhm.
time. And
Yeah,
when she did,
absolutely.
I knew I was being called home.
And
As
it's
soon as
magical.
I arrived in Sedona, I knew I'd come home.
It's magical. Do you know the reason I came to your event in March, which I highlighted and so forth beautifully on a couple of episodes? I had 3 months. I was woken up and told to go to the place where the Red Rock is. And like, I was told I was being talked to, okay? And I'm like, "What?" So then I had at the time Craig Campobasso, who wrote the UFO hotspots. He goes, "Oh, you mean Sedona, the Red Rock?" And I was like, "Okay." Do you know we stayed literally in a house that was in a neighborhood, like, near the chapel, literally behind the Red Rock. I had so many magical things happen, so I too the Red Rock called me.
Yep, she does. The goddess Sedona calls you, and
Mm.
you just feel compelled to answer. And when you do, and you get here, you
Absolutely.
feel
Oh, yeah. Oh,
this
yeah.
sense of being home. And I really do feel like the people who feel strongly called to come have had lives here. Now, many people believe that Sedona in ancient times was a crystal temple city. The Hopi actually call Sedona Crystal City of Light. They also call Sedona City
Mm.
of the Star People. And they say Sedona was built by the Star People millennia ago as a crystal temple city.
Okay, so thank you. Let's stop right there just a second. Okay, this image, I was told to put the star people.
I love that. Look at
And
that.
I didn't even know why. I'm like, "Is she gonna be upset I'm putting these star people?" And so okay, but do you know why I was there? I had visitations. Okay, this is it's all you. You're I mean, it's not just you, but it's something collective. I had a visitation the first night there, and it looked like a blonde-haired guy, in a red cape, and I said, "Are you Palladian?" And he smiled, he goes, "No." And he says, "I'm Orgathian." And he told me he was named like Rafa. And I'm like, okay. I saw him later on the Michael Jaco thing when I did it. And he took me on a tour down below. And Michael Jaco was like, that was pretty accurate. I was like, okay. Then I had a Hopi, and I didn't know about the Hopis. He said, because I'm from the South, I mispronounced it. Not that we mispronounce words always, but we love our vowels. I thought it was Salo Pay. I said he was a beautiful Native American that came to me the third night. And I'm like, "Who are you?" And he giggled. He said, "I'm your guide." I said, "Just for here, or like from now on?" I'm like, "What's the deal?" And he said, "I'm Salope." But then I looked at it later on, and I found it like a couple months later, and it's not pronounced like that, but it's part of the Hopi, and they live in the mountains. So that place is powerful.
Yes, absolutely. And to the Hopi, Sedona is sacred land. In fact, the indigenous of this area even were in Yavapai County in honor of the Yavapai, and the Yavapai merged with the larger Apache race and are now the Yavapai Apache Nation. And then you have the Navajo or Dene up in Flagstaff, and then north of that you have the three Hopi Mesas. And none of those tribes will live in Sedona because they say Sedona is sacred ground and you're only meant to come here for ceremony and worship. And so, in honor of this concept that Sedona is a sacred temple site.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I could, the crystalline grids, they say, are underneath all of that, but there is something energetically different. And I feel like the people are different. I thought they were very welcoming, and I've been to many places, and it is a magical place. So, okay, so you moved. This is cool. So you moved, you felt this calling, and you moved. And how long have you been there now?
Going on 9 years now.
Wow.
Next year will be our ninth year. We moved here in 2015. And I knew that I wanted to have events here. I had already had an event in Northern California when I released my first book, Wake Up. And I just loved hosting an event. And I invited other like minded souls who were also authors or, spiritual or wellness practitioners. And I took all of the content from the filmed event and I started putting it out on social media. And Voice America TV saw what I was posting and they invited me to have a show on Voice America TV. And I called it Lighten Up TV.
That's
Fitness
cute.
center, the wellness center that I had in the desert was called Lighten Up. And so a Lighten Up TV. And then that went on for a few years. And every week I had to come up with a show. And I was very meticulous about the way it had to be edited. And so I spent the majority of my time finding people to interview each week and then editing it for that. But I met a gal named Shakina Rose shortly after moving here, who's beautiful Blu-ray. She's an emissary for the Blu-ray. She also sings the language of light, like an angel.
Mhm.
And I met her, and she took me out to these vortex sites around Sedona. And we just had the most incredible
Yeah.
otherworldly experiences. And she taught me how to tune into the vortex and to really benefit from that powerful spiraling energy. And together, her and I made a show called Supernatural Sedona. And that TV series is now currently on the Supernatural Adventures channel of sci-spy.tv, SCISPI.tv, because I, in a vision, saw sci-spy merging science and spirituality. And
Mhm.
I knew it was meant to be a new genre, and that became the name of my TV network. So that was one of the first things that happened to me, but I knew I wanted to have events here. I had my very first event in the fall of 2015 and have had 2 events a year every year since, except for the spring of 2020, because of
Well, let's figure
our
that one out. Yeah,
I had to do a lot of
self-explanatory.
refund.
Right, right. Well, that's understandable, the whole bit because you want people to get on airlines and all of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but even during that year, didn't it give you time to kind of reflect and clarify even further things that you want to do?
Yes, well, interestingly enough, as part of doing these events, I started having people come to Sedona, like Andrew Collins from Ancient Aliens, like Laura Eisenhower. I
Mhm.
call these, the celebrities. And as part of my events, I was having these celebrities come along and they were going out on the land. So I arranged these Sedona Red Rock adventures led by these celebrities. And I hired Sedona Mystical Tours to guide these journeys because you have to have a permit here in Sedona to take people out on the land if you're
Yeah,
going to
I
charge
would
them.
imagine. Yeah.
And so I ended up becoming a guide, a permitted guide with Sedona Mystical Tours. We were only quiet here in Sedona for a couple of months because of the opportunity to do outdoor recreation. People were buying RVs like crazy. People were coming here in droves because kids were right homeschooled. The parents were laptop lifestyle now. And so they just hit the road. And Sedona was jam packed to the gills. Now, as a permitted guide, I take people out into Sedona's vortex sites. I also do sessions inside in a spiritual center, intuitive
Oh,
readings, healings. We were so booked that I mean, it was only a couple months and I was slammed, right? With journeys on the land, with sessions indoors. And then I persevered and had an event in September of 2020. I had an outdoor event,
oh, good for you. Yeah,
right?
again, gutsy, right? Well, why not? Yeah, sure. Outdoors, sure.
Yeah, so it was really great. People were out, able to get out of their house, come to Sedona, be outdoors, keep their distance if they wanted, wear a mask if they wanted, whatever. But there's a gentleman here in Sedona who has gorgeous outdoor property right on Oak Creek in Oak Creek Canyon. And yeah, so that was really great.
Wow, so you still persevered and went forward. It was a good time for me. That's when I started getting more messages and starting this channel and at a pivotal thing. And I appreciate you being candid about the dark night of the soul because some people are maybe even still going through that. And I think sometimes it's important to go through something like that to recalibrate to see what you really want and to be happier in the end, because it forces you to look at what's going to really bring you pleasure and happiness and so forth. So now the events that you do the Sedona Ascension events, when did that now you've been doing this what, 20 years?
Well, I had my first event in 2012, and that was in Northern
Mhm.
California.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll be going on 12 years next year. And so, yes, I'm very excited to be able to offer events in Sedona because people love to come to Sedona. So, my
Mhm.
events have taken on many different expressions over the years, indoors, outdoors. But finally, a few years ago, I came onto the model of having the event indoors because it's better for AV and audio visual and seating and everything, and you can have vendors. But ultimately I knew I wanted to take people out into Sedona's Red Rock sites, and that's where the whole
Mm.
celebrity tour thing came up,
I love that
where
idea. It's a great idea. That actually attracted me. I was like, "Oh, cool." It's
right,
it's
yeah,
kind of
so
like
it's
a
very,
cherry
very
on top. It's
experienced.
cool.
Right? You went out with Michael Jaco on the
Yeah, I
land.
loved it, and he brought out his singing bowls, and it's so funny to see his career and to see him change from this warrior, and now he's bringing out these singing bowls. We're all like laying on the mountainside, in our coats, uh, and he was, because ex-military is very specific. Okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna walk here. We're gonna be quiet because it's sacred. So like, don't do a lot of talking. Be respectful. And then he said, no, we're going to sit here. We're going to ask permission. We're going to do this. We're going to meditate. And then we're going to do this about 15 minutes. And then we're going to slowly walk back down. And it was like, okay, then I enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Yes, right? And so, unlike, events where you don't really get the chance to interface with these, A-listers who are, on the main stage,
Right.
it's like we have a couple opportunities.
Mhm.
First, you get to go out on the land. You get to go to these sacred vortex sites with your favorite, best-selling author or speaker or spiritual teacher. And then we have these workshops indoors as well. Did you take an indoor workshop as well?
I took several of them. I did the VIP route because, I mean, it's still good whatever you do, but I enjoyed that. Because I had a lot of friends I knew were speaking, so I was like, I want to kind of hang out with them, and I did that. I did the remote viewing with Alan Steinfeld. That was good. I tried to attend as much as I could. The only thing that I regret I didn't see, but my husband saw, was Paul Sealing, and he said that was interesting, and I wanted to see that, but I had a session with someone, so I couldn't do that. But I tried to take advantage of seeing everything that I could, and I thought it was well rounded. I had my favorites, but everybody, I thought it was real well rounded. Yeah, and I did the
Oh,
smaller ones.
thank
I did the
you.
workshops. I did the main stage. I tried not to miss anything. My favorite, though, you're going to be surprised. One of my favorites was you and the panel at the end.
Aw, thank
I
you.
love
Yeah.
that. I love that, and some people were tired because it's the last day and you're excited and you're talking to people. So, just talking to people is tiring sometimes, even though it's fun. And so the last day, but I'm so glad that we went and we didn't miss it because that was such a good finishing touch where you had other event specialists like Deborah Gusti and then Neil Gar and then different ones. Then you had JJ Hardock and you had Vivian Chauvet, and then yourself, and then I don't know if I might have left. Oh yeah, you had Matt Kahn, and it was great because everybody had a different perspective, and I thought everybody did really good, and they answered uniquely to themselves. That was one of my favorites.
Oh, good. I do. I love the round tables. We're
Mhm.
going to have two round tables for this next event, March 8th through 10th. And one of them is a Galactic Ascension roundtable. So every year I mix it up. I don't want to show the same movie again. So I
Yeah,
mix
sure.
up the speakers, I mix up the
Sure.
roundtables.
You have
We always
to.
mix up the workshops and
Yeah.
journeys.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Galactic Ascension I thought would be fun. Ruben Langdon, who's the host of Interviews with Extra Dimensionals on Gaia TV, he was hosting a roundtable at my September Transcendence event, and he's going to come back and host this Galactic Ascension roundtable. All channelers who then channel the galactics, and we
Fun.
ask questions of the entities that they're bringing through about galactic ascension.
Very, 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 very cool. That is cool. I like that. Yeah, I'm like, go Syrians, but I do different ones too. But go Syrians.
Right? How much
So
fun
good.
is that?
Well,
Yes.
nobody ever talks about it. Everybody's talking about Nocturians, and they're great, and the Palladians are great, but come on, there's others. But what I love is that we're looking way past this global thing, and we're already preparing for this galactic ascension that we're going to. I mean, I'm in anticipation to meet for real, our star family.
For
I'm
real,
like,
real.
I am. I
Yeah,
really, I
me
mean, I'm
too.
ready. I'm totally digging it, and I see lots. I'm sure you do too, but a lot of us do. But I see lots of UFOs. Some are big ones I've seen, that are there's no doubt about it. And my husband's seen it with me. It's like it's normal, and I really was not phased at all. I'm like, I was upset they didn't land. So I'm
Right.
I mean, I was like very depressed for about a week. I'm like, darn. So I felt so much intense love, which I can't really explain. People said, you take a picture. I'm like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was like in those euphoric moment. So I really wasn't thinking that. But yeah, so I think what you're doing, we're manifesting, right? This to occur that we can be Earth can be part of the star nations and part of this cosmic, planetary system. And that's where we're going. And a lot of people are putting that out there. And as we know, we're manifestors, we're creators. So I think this is going to happen in our lifetime, which we're going to talk about that on the UFO disclosure. And I want to hear your side of that. So you're going to have to see part 2 to find out about the UFO disclosure and what you really feel about that. Because you're at the pulse of everything. Being in Sedona is a very, not just mystical, spiritual place, but there is a lot of UFO, a lot of interdimensionality going on that, I want you to, you hear about things that I don't, you witness things that I don't, just being there. So I want everybody to know about this event coming up. So I'm going to go put up your poster. Let me get rid of your this here so they can see the full thing. But you're having this coming up in March, and they're going to have below where they can sign up. But tell them a little bit about that. I had a good time last year.
Oh, thank you. So I like to theme the events. And yes, one of the themes is Galactic Ascension. And so I really wanted to bring in the Galactics. And Linda Moulton Howe has been
Mhm.
one of my favorite investigative journalists when it comes to
Yes, I know about it
UFO
too.
and ET
Mhm,
research,
mhm,
right? And so she's going
mhm.
to open that Galactic Ascension panel with a UFO
Cool.
ET Intel update. And then on Sunday, she's doing a presentation called Brains to Galaxies. I won't go through
Really?
each, speaker here, but I just kind of wanted to point out the
Yeah.
sort of um, focuses. So Galactic Ascension, of course,
Cool.
we have channelers, Bashar, Rob Gauthier, Wendy Kennedy, Channels of Pleiadian, Sean Swanson, right? Like you said, Vivienne Chevet, who is
Yes.
Arcturian human hybrid, right?
Mhm.
And then near death experiences. So, right here,
Yeah.
Seeking Heaven, this is a perfect venue to talk about my fascination with near death experiences and how it is proof of
Yeah.
afterlife. And
Yes.
what better way to share with people than those who have seen the other side and had such phenomenal experiences than those really well known near death experiencers like Anita Morjani, like
Mhm.
Rob Gentile, Sue Frederick, Mark Anthony. So I'm really excited about having near death experiencers and then star ancestors. And so
Oh,
we're going
that
to have
sounds
the
cool.
indigenous with like William Henry, bringing
Yes.
in about the
Yes.
star ancestry. And then we're going to have a Native American hoop dance as the final show. So, at the
Beautiful.
end, this world champion Native American hoop dancer comes out and he'll blow your mind with what he brings on.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, yeah, and I like how you have to, as an event producer, you have to mix it up every year, because people are attuned to that. They're like, and they also look like, what's this year going to be? So it's important that it does shift and it does move, and then you get people's feedback. I think about the near death experience has become very popular, and I think that to really normal people. I'm not saying we're not normal, but I think we're totally normal. But just the average person, they become very interested because they want to know more. And I think that regular people that have had this, it's an opening to their consciousness, just like a kundalini. So that doesn't mean that someone becomes really super bright or smart afterwards, but it does. It used to be a birth part of I say a birthright, but part of a process. If you were a priestess or in Atlantis or in Egypt, you had to go through an NDE to pierce the veil and come back. That was one of the things. So, people do have some insights into that. And I like how you're mixing it up this year with that. It's not the only thing, but people do, it seems to be very popular these days.
I really like what you're saying about that because people who have had near death experiences like yourself, and so personally, but that people come back elevated, uplifted, people's psychic awareness is expanded, people's,
Generally, yes.
like
Mhm.
dedication to the spiritual path or religious path or, whatever it may be. People are shifted in a dramatic way. Their life takes on a different trajectory, usually in service, to share their near
Mhm.
death experience, to inspire and empower others. And I've
Yeah.
often wondered, like, yes, of course, it's the experience itself. But I've also wondered if there may not be a merge, like a soul merge, maybe
There
with,
is.
oh,
You're
okay,
smart.
there we
Okay, now
go.
let me okay, you're on to something. I knew you were sharp. Okay, so people don't talk about this. So, look, I'm not saying this is in stone. I'm saying this is my opinion. It did, and it's come over a period of time that people, not everybody, because you could just be, I mean, if you're a cannibal, you still may want to come back and eat people. I mean, it doesn't like all of a sudden make you like Gandhi, but it does open people up to their spirituality. And that may be at a little level or maybe a really high level, so that I need to tell people, I have to tell people often, do not worship near death experiences. They're just people that had experience. I mean, that's weird too. But I have talked to several. There's a guy that's going to be coming out. That's not really a known public speaker yet. But I said, "You came back with an angel. You did not drive yourself to the hospital. You were dead." And he was like dead on Anita Morjani multiple levels because I've seen her medical records. And he goes, "Yes, no one knows that. I told my grandmother, meeting for two." A lot of times they'll make soul contracts. And you think, well, when does it happen? Does it happen the time of the near death experience? I don't think so. I think it happens before that. Okay. I think it happens, it's an agreed upon thing. I had someone say to me, "Well, you have six. What's wrong with you?" I like it over there. I'm just gonna say, I'm hard headed. I had to get a check in. But what happens is that they come back a lot of times with psychic healing abilities, just even the average Joe, right? I mean, this could be someone who's like a truck driver. Okay. They come back with these things. It's not like they were on a spiritual path, and nothing against that. I'm just saying that now they do all of a sudden. It's because not only are they involved with this divinity that they're in touch with, but many of them, and they don't even recognize themselves. I can see it now after my activations. I can see what star planets, I can see who's come back with someone. I'm kind of like Debbie Slarson. I just kind of just know now. Like same with her. I don't know why, but I can't. And I'll say, "You're with someone." That's how I know. I agreed. I came back. I'm not completely human. Because they would talk to me. I'm like, "I don't know what you're saying." And they said, "Let's stick with this. The essence of, you came back the essence of a seraphim, the essence of." And I'm like, "Okay." So that's where I'm stuck with it right now, the essence of. But they don't come back alone. Some have soul swaps, and some come back with a blending of the essence of something. Now, occasionally I've heard a couple dark things, but on the whole, 95% is like something really a higher level being. Some are star people, some are what you would consider angelics. Is
I
that what
had
you're
that
thinking?
sense,
Is that
right?
what you're thinking?
Yes, because there was a show, maybe on the Science Channel or something called Beyond and Back. Have you heard of that, Beyond and Back?
I know I'm gonna look it up though. No, where is it?
Oh my
Find it.
gosh.
Okay.
So,
Beyond and
this
back.
was fascinating. My mother-in-law had passed in our home. She had cancer and she lived with us for 9 months, and as she was going through that process, I was already, had been on a spiritual path for decades by then, but I just became interested in like the near death experiences, proof of afterlife, reincarnation. And she passed and had the most tremendous, amazing experience. And then my father moved in, who was also dying from cancer. Fortunately, lived another couple of years after that. But while he was with me, I wanted to show him this series, Beyond and Back, because it was people who had near death experiences. But what I noticed is the person they were before the near death experience was hardly recognizable after their near death experience. And I thought either there's a soul swap or there's a soul merge, or
Yeah.
maybe they're going to a higher plane and merging with a higher dimensional aspect of themselves. But they're coming back wholly
I
transformed.
did see that, and I do know it's I Survived Beyond and Back. Is that what you're talking
Okay,
about?
yes, thank you.
Okay, and then Robert Bear, he's a friend of mine, he had a heart attack, dead 45 minutes on the plane and came back with all sorts of abilities, but, if you really a lot of people Suzanne, I don't know, I'm gonna get your feedback on this. From my experience talking to other near-death experience, they're not equal, okay? So, just like everybody, but a lot of them, I can tell I've said in privacy with them, I've said, "You're an angelic," and they go, "Well, yeah, they told me that when I'm over there, but I don't tell people." I said, "Why don't you?" And they said, "I also was on the Galactic Federation," and they described it just like I saw it, as I've been in there in my astral, and exactly, like, even how it's propelled and the bioluminescence and everything, and said, "Yeah, I've been with them a long time." I said, "Well, why don't you say this?" They said, "Well, no one's asked me." And a lot of people are too chicken, and they're actually some people in the near death experience community, God, are kind of uh, maybe tiffed with me because I talk about these things and I don't just stay there because I feel like life is in us now and we're more than just the near death experience. Life is within us. And I merge these other topics like, they don't come back usually alone. They just don't. Think
Yeah.
about it. And here's the thing, we can't judge our spiritual evolution. We can just ask questions. I'm not saying anything in stone. I'm saying we should just ask these questions. That's all. And I don't think we should separate topics, like there's the UFO community over there, or the galactics, and then there's the indie. It's one big conversation of spirituality and exploring consciousness. So I don't believe in trapping us in. I think we should just be not have that judgment and just be open to these different discussions. So I'm hoping that this will free up some people to talk about it, to tell me things in private. But you're on to something.
And thank you for saying exploring consciousness and also spiritual evolution,
Hmm.
because, we are evolutionary beings. We are, spiritual beings having a physical experience, and everything has emerged from an infinite field of consciousness, God consciousness, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And physicists are now confirming, across the board that consciousness is fundamental and everything emerges from consciousness.
Yeah.
And so, it's an exploration of consciousness. It's an exploration of the human, physical, spiritual experience. And everything is within it because we are all that, right? And so when
Absolutely.
you really pull
Yeah.
back and look at the bigger picture, it's
Yeah.
the, whole picture of the human spiritual experience.
Yeah, and here's you're a perfect role model and example, is that you could have stopped at a given point, right? You didn't let here's the thing, the way I view it was fear or fear of the unknown. I'm more if there were a fear, I'm more fearful of being bored and having regrets I didn't go for things that are in my heart that I feel impressed upon my heart to do. And my heart, I just let it lead, and my heart spirit lead, and then sometimes later on it makes sense. Sometimes that makes sense in the beginning, but I feel like that one of my mission here is to be able to say whoever it is, and I don't care who it is, I don't care what position they are in life. They could be the head of a country, I don't care. I will tell everybody, and I really have, and I really do. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't get stuck in your own story. That's okay to tell parts of your chapters of your story of your book of life, but keep pushing yourself to your next step, whatever that is, and don't be defined even by your own words, and let that evolve. And we can easily innocently trap ourselves. So I think that we confuse people when we grow and they can't label you anymore. But we don't need labels. That's the whole point. We want to be free of those things.
Absolutely. I always say labels are limiting.
Very.
Right? Because in truth, we are eternal souls. And I call the eternal soul the source self. And I truly believe that we have a source self who is beyond space and time, who is the
Yes.
source of all of these holographic fractals that we have dispersed throughout this space-time hologram, right? But as
Yeah.
fractals go, each fractal is still the whole hologram. And so we
Mhm.
are our eternal souls right here and now.
Mhm.
We're sourced by the infinite. We're also immortal.
Beautiful.
And so this
Yes.
is the expanse of all that we are as an aspect of the one infinite.
You're absolutely right. And also when I had the activation, my experience, I'll tell about my experience. At some point after my third or fourth one, I saw being the seed of life and I saw my essence, if you want to call it that, in different planets doing different things at the same time here. And I didn't look anything like this. So this is our, and I'm not demeaning it, but this is our avatar for now. And we project this image that we want, that we desire to, which mine is Barbie pink today, and so are you, but power pink. But this is just a facet of who we are. I mean, the only time we truly get a glimpse of who we are is when we're in either deep meditation or in altered states, and then we get a glimpse of the powerful being that we are.
Yes, absolutely. And when we do the UFO episode, I'll tell you about my missing time experience and what happened after that, as far as my ability to not only witness who I was being, but actually become who I was being in these different dimensions and timelines.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so you're a pro. See, you left. I didn't have to tell you. Leave it with a teaser because we're gonna go into that. We're gonna go into consciousness, and we're going to go into these deeper states because I think that's how we're truly connecting to our star family and to other intergalactic beings is through this consciousness. So I want to tell everybody else to sign up for your Sedona Ascension Retreat or get in contact with you for other things and stay tuned for the UFO disclosure. And we're going to go into, what we think was going to happen, but we're going to talk about consciousness and about how these connections are already happening with people, with other star seeds. They're happening already. And so we're going to go into that, and I want to hear that story. So thank you for your time today. And I'll see everybody in episode 2 with UFO disclosure with Suzanne Ross. Take care.
Thank you, Tamara. Mwah. Bye-bye now.
Bye.